Like the Real Housewives of Max Verstappen up in here.
Checo's checked out.
Joe Lonyu is off the track. That steak is cooked.
A lot, I gotta say, a lot is at stake for Steak F1.
Man, even the broadcast couldn't handle that stat.
My heart almost was screaming like, how can anybody be a Lewis Hamilton fan?
No.
Not on my 2024 bingo card.
Yeah, we're gonna have to create a new one now.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Marina, and here with Tristan, Steven, and Jason. And today we're going to review our 2024 season predictions made well before the season even started. So you can probably get an idea of how well that went. Before we do that, I want to address something so I don't get absolutely bashed by Steven. This is a McLaren shirt. It is a Danny Rick shirt. It's not Lando. So let's get that right out of the way.
Oh, we should know by the flag. The flag kind of gives
it could be a Piastri shirt.
It could be Oscar, but
It's DR3.
Now, this is in honor of the last Red Bull driver to beat Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There you go.
But yeah, speaking of which, let's get into this week's headlines. Firstly, Checo, he's gone.
Let's go. Checked out.
Checo's checked out.
Officially.
So
it's official.
says.
Hey, you know what? You love to see it. I mean, it is kind of crazy, though.
Love to see it? That's a crazy statement, but keep going.
For Red Bull's sake, we love to see it. Golly. But no, I thought it was kind of crazy, though, that Red Bull, I think, lost, I think it was 200,000 followers on Instagram, like, after he left.
No, did they really?
Yeah.
They did.
I thought it was Perez that lost 200K.
No,
Red Bull.
I will say, I saw too, he gained, I think he got 15 mil for leaving before his contract ended, which was kind of crazy.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Not followers.
No, dollars.
Yeah, dollars.
15 million
Imagine if it's
followers.
pesos, he would have been totally cooked. Didn't read the fine print on the thing, and it was pesos instead of dollars or euros.
Yeah,
Like,
it was dollars.
Yeah, it's definitely dollars. Or if it was yen, that would be even worse. Imagine Yuki Tsunoda's contract is like secretly in yen, and he had
That
no
would
clue.
be terrible.
Anyways,
Here's my thing, right? I've been preaching, as I said in my video this week, I've been yelling at the top of my lungs for this to happen for so long. However, I failed to realize Red Bull didn't actually have that many good options to replace him, which is part of the reason I think he lasted as long as he did. I just don't think anyone's good enough to go against Max. And the only person I can think of is Carlos Sainz, which is too late for that. Like, if they had done this earlier in the season, then maybe. But
they had that opportunity.
They did. It was 10 laps. And the thing is, Carlos Sainz ended up making his decision based on who wanted him the most, kind of where he saw a lot of potential, but also who was actively seeking him out. And the fact that Red Bull didn't really actively seek they didn't really seek him out meant he wasn't he had no second thoughts about signing with Williams when the Red Bull seat could have possibly been open.
well, it seemed like they wanted somebody younger that would stay for a long time. And if they weren't looking for that, if they're just looking for a decent second driver, you potentially had Bottas on the table, Sainz on the table, even Hulkenberg maybe, but they're not looking for that. Verstappen's already 27. I know that sounds young, but in F1 years, that's the end of some people's career.
Absolutely.
I mean, De Vries ended at 27. We all know how great he was.
Yeah, but look how
he got aged
good
out.
that career was.
I know.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. Hence he aged out, beyond 27.
Yeah.
He
But you're totally right. That's a great point. Even though it was obvious, Perez was great in 21, and after that he's been so hot and cold, mostly in the wall. In Q1.
Yeah.
Who else would have been there?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
thing about it is that he did it to himself. I mean, again, we go back to halfway through the season when he had that contract made for next year, and I think 26 as well is what Red Bull technically had him for. But then, just poor performance is what kicked him out of that seat. I mean, there's this fundamental exclamation point when
Cost.
Cost.
Third in the constructors, you lose all that prize money, literally tens of millions.
Yeah.
And the millions into the wall of crashing the car and putting them back in development from breaking parts, it hurt the team way more than than the 15 million they paid him to leave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was 5 million in the destructor standings, like roughly.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's when you're out on lap 1 of the last race of the season and you've only had a cascading failure from there on. He had the opportunity. If he had just come in like 7th in every single race,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the season, like after he signed that contract, he probably would have had the seat.
Yeah,
You know?
he probably would have got another chance next
7,
year. And
Yeah.
he started out great. Like the first 5 races, he had what, like 3 podiums in second place? Like
Yeah.
exactly what Red Bull needed. Max first,
Yeah.
Checo second. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, he literally, the thing is, and Christian Horner has spoken about this too, is like, they gave him the contract. They
Yep.
said, we recognize that maybe you're like a little stressed and stuff. Let's give you this contract. You are safe for 25, provided you perform. The problem, in my mind, came with the fact that everyone knew this contract came with a performance clause and a
Yeah.
buyout option. So, does it give you a little bit of security? Sure. But if you're not going to perform, there's no security there.
Yep.
Right? If you're still struggling with the car, if you're still crashing, you're still getting out in Q1, what's going to happen is exactly what we saw happen over the course of this week. So, I don't know. I also find it slightly ironic that one ex-Red Bull driver didn't make it past lap 1, and the new current V-Carb driver didn't even drive lap 1. So,
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
yeah,
Well, I want to talk about
too. So,
his replacement now.
Mr.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson.
Liam
let's
Lawson.
Yes.
talk about his replacement, because man, have I loved seeing all the media around this. It's so fun.
Oh man, there's been everything around this,
Ton
honestly.
of stuff around it.
Yeah.
I
Though
think
I
he
will.
was bored.
Yeah.
Let's be so for real. This
Yeah.
would not have been like a big thing if it had happened mid-season.
Probably.
Yeah.
No, it would have been big. It would have been even bigger, I think.
What I mean
Like
is,
it was so expected right now for Liam
Not-
Lawson to take the seat.
I don't mean
I don't know if it's
like
expected,
big as in like big headline news. I mean big as in like social media erupting over it and like
Yeah.
losing
Yeah.
200,000 followers or whatever. I don't think it would have been as big because people move on so quickly during the season. There's so much news that it's hard to like grab one thing. That's why
Yeah.
like the Lewis Ferrari thing was so big too, because it was before the season. Nobody had anybody to talk about except that.
Yeah.
So
No,
Sure.
it depends on the driver and team. Like when Palmer got kicked out mid-season at Renault, nobody spoke a word. But
Yeah.
when what was it? Danny Rick, that was a big deal. What was probably the biggest mid-season swap within like the last 3 years?
Probably Verstappen
DeVries?
and what's
Could
it
be it.
called?
Oh, but
Yeah,
yeah, back in
probably.
16. Yeah, that was probably it.
Yeah,
You're right.
or Danny
because that was a huge move by Red Bull and it
or
worked out
Danny
really good for
last
them.
year.
Yeah, that was pretty big. But like probably the most shocking was Tristan, you nailed that. Was probably
Yeah.
Max's move.
Probably. Was it? I mean, you guys tell me. You were fans in 2016. I was really, really like way off. Like, was it shocking or was it necessary?
I think it shocked the paddock more than it shocked the fans.
It
Okay.
kind of started the trend of Red Bull being like ruthless with their drivers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like before, like they had Webber and Vettel for years.
Yeah.
And then Ricciardo and Vettel, but everybody knew Vettel was leaving. So everybody was kind of like shocked, like, wow, they gave this guy a year and a half. They give Daniel Kvyat a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then what punctuated it was Max Verstappen walked in and won his very first race at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
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 I mean, granted, the circumstances of that race, you know, he wouldn't have won it on merit. Because
Well, the merit would be is the Mercedes drivers were stupid that day. So,
but I'm saying if Mercedes had kept it on the track, he wouldn't have won that race.
Yeah.
do you know what my favorite moment from that race was?
When Lewis and Nico took each other out.
It happened right after that. Lewis took out his steering wheel and like shot it like a basketball. He like chest passed it out of the car. He like ripped it clear of the front wing. And those aren't cheap. Those are like
No.
$20,000 steering wheels. He just took it and was like, Kobe. Like,
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's a race. I think what kind of like solidified that move for Red Bull for sure, back in 2016 was the fact that not only did Max come in and win his first race. But that race in its entirety has been a talking point since that day. We're talking about it in 2024, like almost 10 years later. So I don't know. They made the right decision. But the question is, did they make the right decision with Liam Lawson over Yuki Tsunoda?
This is very interesting to me because I feel like a lot of times this year we saw Liam Lawson fighting with Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda even, and the back markers, if you will.
Yeah,
so,
he's a great driver.
I don't doubt that he is, but I just really hope, especially for Yuki's sake, that he does well at Red Bull. Because if he doesn't, and
we could see another midseason swap.
Yeah, like Yuki's gonna be like, "I told you."
Who knows, man? I mean, this is like kind of deep, big brain, kind of like looking into the system. But what if Red Bull's planning that? What if Red Bull's looking towards 2026 and being like, all right, we have these 2 young talents. What if we do give one of them half the year and then the other one the other half of the year? Yeah. As long as the other isn't wrecking cars, then like maybe he deserves it, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if they're looking towards that. They're like, we need somebody for next 2026 when the engine regs hit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I will hope.
I wouldn't go as far as that. I would say, though, that Yuki's going to have one chance next year in that Red Bull seat. And that's when Kelly has the baby. I don't think Max, if it's near race weekend, I don't think Max will race. Not unless he absolutely has to. If he's in a tight championship fight, he'll come race. He's a racer. But if not, that's Yuki's one shot to show that he's worth that drive for.
That's their reserve driver.
Yuki?
I don't think. Well, all their reserves are in.
Which is crazy to think. But yeah, you're right. You lost Hajar because now he's in the RB.
Yeah.
And
someone
Lawson is in the big team.
Weekend. And I would assume Yuki would come in and race for that weekend.
Yeah. The thing is,
that's going to be his chance, like his one shot to prove that he's worth it.
I'm not going to say one shot. And I actually heard this today. I was listening to the latest F1 Nation episode. Yeah. Shout out
Tom Clarkson.
Remember, Max could be suspended next season if he messes up again.
Very true. He is.
They were talking about he's not going to change his style. So if Lando steps up all of a sudden and Max does his thing, you could very easily get suspended. Then Yuki gets two spots all of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. Unless it happens to be on the same weekend.
Yeah.
Max been planning or orchestrating through the media.
That would be crazy.
Can we just
go for it?
I was going to say, can we talk real quick why it wasn't Yuki? I mean, I'm really confident with why I think it is. But
there's only one right answer to why it wasn't Yuki, and that's Honda.
Yeah.
I said this in my video. Yuki is a Honda driver. Honda's deal with Red Bull grants them one seat in a Red Bull vehicle, be that the V-Carb or the main team.
Yeah.
Had Honda continued past 2026 and Ford not been coming in, he would have had a fighting chance.
Yeah.
But I think 2 things kind of sealed the deal for Red Bull. The first one is the fact that he is a Honda driver. So why would they Honda's leaving at the end of next year? Why would they now promote Yuki? It doesn't make any sense. Especially because I think it does leave the door open for Yuki to gain that experience in the Red Bull and then jump ship to continue with Honda somewhere at Aston, assuming, if a seat became open there. The other thing is something that Christian Horner said in his interview, which was, yes, Liam may not have produced the results necessarily that Yuki did, but they were, if you look at the data, they were pretty close.
Yeah.
And Liam had a total of 11 races across 2 seasons. Yuki had 4 years. So I think that Red Bull feels that the room to grow for Yuki Tsunoda is about to hit its peak point, whereas the room to grow for Liam Lawson is still well ahead. He could still be the next Max Verstappen. I don't think he will be, but he could still be that person, in my opinion.
And of course, the thing that could mess everything up is if Isaac comes out and he just destroys, Yuki, and then Liam isn't doing well.
Then where does that leave Yuki?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Isaac's got to be real careful about coming in with confidence.
I don't think he's going to destroy Yuki.
Nick DeVries came in with a whole lot of confidence, and we saw how well that went. I mean, there's literally quotes of him saying, like, Yuki's going to get destroyed and stuff like that, and he was very mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
I think Isaac's a great driver. However, I don't know how much. How do I put this? I don't know how much I trust his ability in F1
That's fair.
quite yet. I still think he's too young.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 20, so he's a lot older than like Max was when he came in the sport, but his mentality is still a little immature. I don't trust his will to go racing that much. In terms of like car setup, which I think at like a team like VCarb could be the difference between points and no points on a weekend. I don't know, like how much are they relying on Yuki now to fulfill that role?
Yeah.
So I will say though, I think Christian also said this, that he thought that, or RedBull thought as a whole, that Isaac outperformed Yuki in the postseason test.
Interesting.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if his mindset's already there, he thinks he's better than Yuki, just by in season test. That automatically puts him better than Liam Lawson in my mind. Because if they're that close, then I mean, shoot. Maybe they're looking for Isaac in the next 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Red Bull has got to be really careful now. We obviously talk about them being cutthroat, and that they kind of make these midseason swaps that are kind of drastic changes. They got to be really careful because let's be so for real. There's nobody left. Every driver currently in their junior categories that is a Red Bull driver, in my opinion, is nowhere near F1 ready and might never be.
Enzo Fittipaldi. I mean, he's no longer a Red Bull driver, but they should bring him back in. Bring him back in. Let him run.
I was really hoping. This is like totally delusional thinking, right? But I was really hoping that since they were taking a while to announce Isaac, because I thought it would be like kind of immediate. Once they announced Liam, they'd be like, well, everybody's going to assume it's Isaac. Let's just release it. It took a little bit. In that meantime, I was thinking, what if they're having talks with Felipe Drukovic? Because he's been waiting for a seat for a long time. No, he's not a driver, but let's remind ourselves that Isaac didn't win the championship, so he could have gone back to F2 for a year. Yeah. And they could have given someone else a shot. It also means that Isaac would have been available should they need a reserve in either of those scenarios, because it's not like Red Bull hasn't needed reserves in the last couple years. So
who's going to take Isaac's seat in F2?
Arvid Lindblad, I think.
Okay.
He's also a Red Bull driver. So there's a lot of seats in F2 opening up. I mean, we now have 5 confirmed F2 drivers and rookies coming into the sport. Well, I guess 4 plus Jack Doohan, but 5 rookies going into next year, plus Liam Lawson, who hasn't completed a season opener yet.
Yeah, they're technically counting Liam as a rookie, right?
Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
I think so. Pretty sure.
He hasn't done a full year.
But
so it still counts as a rookie.
I think in FIA terms, a rookie is only less than 3 races.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yep.
So does that mean he's not eligible for like Rookie of the Year honors or anything like that? That's what I was thinking.
That's a separate consideration.
I don't think F1 doesn't really do that. I know that's actually a big thing in like NASCAR, IndyCar, is they keep points and they have a rookie standings, but F1 doesn't do that.
They have the FIA Rookie of the Year, but it just goes. It's FIA, like it's not just F1.
It's like an award.
Could it be?
It's not a points tally.
Interesting.
Yeah. Could it be one of the 5 drivers in F1 next year? Yeah.
Part of the FIA prize giving ceremony. So I mean,
that's what I'm saying. But it's not F1 exclusive. Like this year's FIA Rookie of the Year was Gabriel Bortoleto, who's in F2. So it's like it's like
okay, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
So it could be one of the 5 rookies next year. It could also be like someone in F2 or F3 or whatever. Like it's very it doesn't really pertain specifically to F1. So
yeah.
Interesting.
We shall see.
But also that's because we don't see an insane amount of rookies all the time. Like this is kind of a mind-boggling situation.
I mean, we're going from no rookies on the grid, no new drivers, all the same lineups, to 5 new rookies. And how many teams have changed their lineup? Almost every one of them.
See, but we kind of predicted that, didn't we? We were like, this lineup is going to last for like this year, and then it's all going to go to hell.
I think that was.
Oh yeah, we all knew this going in.
Yeah,
we knew there were going to be some shakeups in the grid, but I don't think any of us predicted this many.
No, there's no way. No, yeah.
But before we move on, I do want to mention one thing that I thought was so funny. Liam did a interview with the pit stop guys, He did a
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, I started watching it.
he was talking about the driver dinner. He was like, yeah, we were all in on it. Like, we totally, on purpose, told everyone to fill in every seat but the one next to
Oh,
Max.
George showed up late because he's an
George
idiot.
was so late. So there was all that stuff, but he was also talking about like him and Yuki. I don't think I ever realized how much of like a little mini bromance those two midgets have.
That's a crazy statement.
Man, is Lawson that short?
They're both short. They're not that short, but they're both short. But like I don't think I realized how that they had been teammates before.
No, he's 5'9". You call that short? Yuki is 5'3".
Yeah, it's a little rough for our boy Liam Lawson.
I think he's a little taller than I thought he was, but he's.
What if that's why he's not in Red Bull? What if Yuki is just too short and they can't extend the pedals?
Maybe they can't.
In another year,
they can't fit in his car seat.
What I was gonna say is he was talking about like going to Macau and then them Helmut Marko come on the phone being like, all you have to do is do not crash in FP1. You need the running time. It's like a tough track. And Yuki just absolutely destroyed Liam's car. Comes up here, clips the front wheel. Yuki goes flying. Liam's suspension is totaled. Then he's in the elevator and he opens the door and he looks at Liam. Liam's like, I swear to God, Yuki looked at me with a face and you knew exactly what he did. And he did it on purpose. It was so funny him telling these stories. There was so many of them. I was like so entertained for like the hour or whatever the podcast was. Also, did you know, fun fact, I should have done this for Fun Fact Friday. Did you know that the boots in that iconic picture of Max kicking his tire in Baku after the puncture on like 5 laps to the end of the race are Liam's?
What?
That's crazy.
Why?
Time he was racing F2. But Max's boot was good. I think he had like special boots for that weekend. They didn't ship in time, so they didn't make it to the track. So for FP1, he used Checo's boots, but they're like 3 sizes too small. And Liam and Max have the same size feet. So after FP1, when they realized Max's boots we're not gonna make it for the rest of the weekend, they stole Liam's. Well, by stole, they grabbed Liam's. Liam had like an extra pair, I think. But I think it's so funny that like that picture for me is so iconic. It's so engraved in my brain of like Max kicking that tire. It's not even his shoes.
I don't know if I've ever seen that picture.
Have you never?
2021 tire kick. I watched it live.
I did too.
Let me see if I can just like Google it.
Red Bull knew Liam Lawson was going to be their driver. When
Max Verstappen flat Baku.
That was Marina. Marina, you helping me out here? Oh yes, I have seen that picture.
And I should have known too because they're black and Max doesn't wear black boots, but it's so funny.
I think just backing up for half a second, like that little mini story with Lawson and Yuki, I think that's a big reason why myself and a ton of people are bent out of shape because that he didn't get that ride. Is because Yuki has come around so much as being a personality. He's so funny and goofy that it's like it's kind of like a Ricardo type of situation.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Not nearly as sentimental as Ricardo, but like I want to see Yuki in the top ride. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think
that was less, statistically driven. I just want to see him.
Yeah, I was also positively surprised by the amount of people that actually were like, I don't want to say heartbroken for Yuki, but kind of like upset that Yuki didn't get it because like a year ago that would not have been the case. Like you said, like he's grown so much as a personality within the sport and like had like these fun, like funny moments and stuff like that throughout the years. And I think that's like huge. Like a couple years ago, like nobody thought Yuki was capable of going to the Red Bull seat, and nor do they want him to. Like they were just like, even if they didn't like Checo, that was not their first pick. Honestly, even at the beginning of the year, all of our first picks were Danny.
Yeah.
So with that, one more honorable mention before we move into our predictions. Valtteri Bottas was confirmed as the Mercedes reserve.
Yay!
I
love to
say the F1 rumor mill has been very good lately.
He's been very accurate. I will say, I don't usually trust anyone that's not like F1 or the team specifically. Like I never trust ESPN. ESPN is either always super delayed or sometimes they can even be slightly inaccurate. Or they'll like stir rumors a little bit.
ESPN is not F1 focused at all. It's like they just take whoever writer is free and then said do it.
But this week they were extremely accurate. They announced Liam much like 2 days I think before F1 did. When F1 announced Checo, they announced Liam. So
There you go.
I guess they do something we didn't. But yeah, let's move into our predictions.
Good stuff.
So everyone except Jason had Haas as last, which could not be further from the truth. Like, think about
I had Steak last.
Yeah.
Which was dead on.
I meant to say everyone but Jason. Did I say everyone but Jason?
Yeah. Well,
Jason
I'm
was
surprised Steven didn't predict that McLaren would win the constructors.
I know.
He's the big McLaren guy, and he didn't even predict it.
I was the only one that predicted McLaren to win the constructors. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Had more faith in your team than you did.
I didn't get a single constructors right.
You're not.
No.
I got 4 of their positions correct. And if you swap around McLaren and Red Bull, then I'd even be more correct. But I did not predict that way.
I only got the 1.
Actually, I might have gotten
3.
Wait, where did Alpine finish? Did they finish above VCarb?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then I did get that.
Alpine.
Everybody predicted VCarb ahead of Alpine this year.
Yeah.
I would also like to point out that I was the only one that got both the constructors and the drivers.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, you did predict that right.
McLaren and
Matt.
Done. Jason and Tristan both said Red Bull. Tristan got Max right. All had a lot of faith in Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, I predicted Charles Leclerc to take the drivers. He did not.
Next year's
did not.
Yeah, it is.
That's how it's so confident, Jason. I'm gonna use.
I mean, no, like I've accepted it as fact. Like I'm not screaming and shouting because I know it's gonna happen. If it's not him, it's his teammate. Hashtag blessed Team LH.
Hashtag blessed or Lord Percival.
Nah, it's hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
Lord Percival. Nobody calls him that. If you're gonna call him a weird name, it's gotta be like Charlie Leclerc.
That's not what I'm asking.
Or like Chuckles. Like, call him Chuck Leclerc.
Who's coming out on top is what I'm asking. King of Ferrari. Or hashtag blessed.
I feel like Leclerc.
That nickname was so funny. F1 Twitter, especially Max fans on F1 Twitter, love to use the hashtag blessed as a dig. So
you know, I feel like Leclerc is just so ingrained in that team and so used to the car. Like, he's going to be super competitive no matter what. But I hope Lewis finds something. I really hope. It'd be so fun to see him winning in a Ferrari. Yeah. After watching for years of him beat Ferrari. He beat Vettel. He beat Fernando. He beat anybody that was wearing red. He beat for years.
Yeah.
And I remember 2018, still, even at Monza, there's fans with signs like, come drive for us.
Yeah.
Right? And now he is. So I'm so ready.
I can tell.
I will say, I would be very scared if I'm a Charles fan if he doesn't beat out Lewis next year.
Why? He's not going anywhere.
Nah, Lewis is going to take a fun run of like 1 or 2 years, retire. Yeah. And then we're going to have Ollie Bierman and Leclerc is going to be like the veteran that's like wiping the floor with him every race. So I'm not scared at all. Leclerc's got his seat like secured.
It's not so much that. It's just if I'm Leclerc, I'd be. I mean, yeah, he's a 7-time champion, but if it like was he's almost what 39, 40?
40.
Yeah,
he's 40.
A 40-year-old driver beats me at my own game. I would not like that.
Do you think that if they ran into like a papaya rules situation, it would be Lewis over Charles or Charles over
Lewis? I would hope not.
You can't assign a number 1 driver. Yeah, it's going to depend on the team's championship and the drivers' championship.
Run into a McLaren-esque situation this year, or a situation where, say, Max is fighting for a championship with Charles, and you're going to finish 1-2 anyways. Do you see that like that being something they would do? Because I don't.
Yes. Because Ferrari hasn't had a number 1 driver since Vettel and Kimi.
But Lewis would never give up a win for Charles.
Exactly. So they're going to say rules of engagement, and they're going to let them fight. They're not going to limit each other.
Interesting. I agree.
Fair enough.
I'm very curious to see what will happen.
Imagine if we're talking about this next year, how Ferrari threw away a championship, McLaren got them back because Ferrari couldn't figure out their papaya rules.
Literally.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
So mad.
Speaking of papaya rules, though, I underestimated Oscar Piastri. Actually, most of us underestimated Oscar Piastri this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I overestimated Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, but my predictions are almost all right. I predicted Verstappen Norris.
So did
and
I.
yes, so did Tristan.
And Leclerc.
And Leclerc, you got the top 3, which is impressive. You just had Alonso in your top 5, which, granted, given the start of last season and how confident they were and how they were saying, like, oh, 2024 is not our year. Like, we like podiums are nice, but we're focusing on 25, 26 or whatever. It's kind of shocking how bad they were this year.
Yeah.
They were actually terrible.
They're a little
Well,
too
no,
chill.
actually terrible is Steak. They were just not good.
Cooked.
Yeah.
Steak is burnt.
Steak is cooked, man.
Steak is jarred.
But same
Put
thing.
that back in the
But
kitchen,
not very
man.
unexpected at all. Most unexpected. I
They're-
got that really wrong. I said Logan would have a great year. He got dropped mid-season. I
No,
almost
this
forgot
one I
about that.
did get right.
Yeah.
I said Max was not going to win Bahrain. He won by 20 seconds, so
Yeah.
that was a flop too.
Who did I say? Lewis Hamilton does not
no
get a
podium
podium.
for Lewis. Yeah,
Honestly, not a terrible prediction. Mercedes looked weak at so many tracks, but they're so inconsistent. Like on
Yeah.
average, this was their worst year since 2021.
That's kind of crazy.
Like on an
actually.
average points per race basis. But
Yeah.
they've also had more wins than last year and in 2022.
It's just
But it's because they're either hot or cold. There's no steady like we're right here.
well, it's
Yeah.
because also they were so tight. Everybody was so tight this year. Even Red Bull and Ferrari with McLaren and stuff. Like you went into what made this year so fun was every race weekend after Miami. You went in and you were like, okay, so who's going to be the top constructor this year? And for the most part, it was a top constructor. Like McLaren were strong, so like Oscar and
Like,
Lando.
even Alpine were good at a race. They were good in Brazil. Like where did
Yeah.
that come from?
Well,
Yeah.
they were getting like
So
a
expected.
couple of tracks at the end.
Yeah. Well,
Such a weird year.
Gasly
Mhm.
was consistently in the top 10 throughout races. Did he score points at every race? No, but he was consistently in the top 10 for most races. He would like pop in there and he'd have a crash or they'd have a pit stop issue or whatever, but like he would pop into the top 10 almost every race weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Pierre, though, also, I mean, look, in races, Monaco, Canada, Spain, and Austria, that was 10th, 9th, 9th, and 10th. That was it. That was his only points finishes until all the way up until Brazil, where he came in 3rd, and then 5th in Qatar, and 7th in Abu Dhabi. And that gave him just enough points to become 10th in the standings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, that's
Yeah, good
crazy,
for
though.
him.
Like,
Yeah,
that's where I'm agreeing with Jason, is like, it's freaking wild that 3 races at the end shot him up past Hulkenberg, who Hulkenberg, only 1 point behind him, had a consistently good season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
there's a good stretch of him where he was coming in 11th at, like, that was his worst position.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
And Haas was
Yeah.
good in qualifying all season long.
They
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy because at the end of the year, Magnussen kind of took charge in qualifying. There were a couple really good qualifyings from K-Mag, whereas Nico didn't do as well.
Yeah.
Like the sprint in Qatar, where it was like one of them did really well in the sprint quali, and then it completely flip flopped for the race quali, like the normal quali. It was like so. I
Yeah.
don't know. Everybody had their ebbs and flows this year. Everybody like went up and down.
Unless your name is
It's true.
Williams or Steak.
Yes. Well, Williams had some races at the beginning where they weren't as terrible, but they were
Yeah.
bad.
They had a major fall off.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, last
Poor
year was
Logan.
so much better. But that's their plan. Like literally James Valley said on multiple different like interviews, like
I'm
we're
not-
focused on 26.
Yeah.
We're sacrificing 24 and 25. Can they focus on 24 and 25 now? Sure. But to what? Finish like 4th? And then
Yeah.
you get to
Yeah.
2026 and you're not ready? All their investment are in 26. So I expect next year to be even worse.
Like, I mean, for
Yeah.
Albon, man, that stretch from Singapore all the way to Vegas, DNF, 16th, DNF, DNS, DNF. Like,
It didn't help that they had Logan for half the year. I mean, he improved very little since last year, but too many crashes, too many mistakes.
Well,
Yeah.
both of them had a lot of crashes. I love Alex, but I don't think anybody can make any excuses for Alex this year. He got Logan's car after he crashed his car and then crashed again. Like,
Yeah.
They gotta check for magnets in the walls. Like,
for Alex Albon fans, Alex had more spent more repairing Alex's car than they did Logan's. They spent more time
That's
repairing Franco's
crazy.
car than they did Logan's. Both Alex and Franco were both ahead of Logan in the deconstructors. And that probably pisses some people off because he lost his seat
that's wild.
because he had more crashes. But if you actually look at it at a points tally, Logan had less crashes, or just, I think it was equal number of crashes when he got replaced than Alex.
Yeah, that is weird since you would. I guess you could
But
make
he
the
didn't have
argument.
the speed. Like Albon obviously has the speed where he could beat, his teammate any day of the week. At least this year.
Well, next year I think is gonna be a whole different story for Williams.
Well,
It's gonna be weird.
I was gonna say the only argument
Two
I guess
former
you
Red Bull people too.
Love Alex, but all due respect to Alex, Carlos is gonna wipe the floor with Alex Albon.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be 24-0 in qualifying in the race, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with that.
That's
Even
a
if
tough deal, man.
Even if that means he scores 1 point all year and Alex scores 0 because Williams is that bad, it's still going to be. And it actually does seem like if Williams has like a decent driver, even with the car they had this year, they could have been scoring points. Like if Carlos was racing, I think they could have scored points a lot more than they did. So let's see.
What do we think is more likely, that Carlos stays at Williams or that Alex leaves?
I don't see either happening at least until after 2026.
I
think Alex leaves first unless Sainz gets a top drive.
I was going to say, I think that Carlos is holding out for 26. I think there's one big thing that could be the move of the century, and that is if Red Bull is decent, but there's still issues with Christian and Jos Verstappen. If Max jumps ship,
goes to Williams with Carlos. Oh.
No, then if Max jumps ship, be that wherever he goes, then Carlos is going to Red Bull, because Carlos' biggest thing I think with Red Bull is that Carlos, he doesn't want to be a number 2. Like a very clear, like Red Bull's second seat is a very clear second seat. You are number 2 to Max Verstappen.
Well, you saw Logan Sargent was number 2, and you saw what happened to him.
What do you mean by that, though?
His race number was number 2.
Oh my gosh!
Wow, that was not a funny dad joke.
Oh,
good try.
Swing and a miss.
Good honest try.
Swing and a miss.
Do you think like Albon takes any personality towards the fact that he's probably getting relegated to a driver number 2 position?
I don't think that's happening yet, especially at Williams. There's no way. We have to wait until next year, see what happens. He's too good to be a number 2 driver.
Do you think there's a driver number 1 position at Williams?
No.
Or do you think it's just like both of you go survive, try your best?
Yeah, that's what
it almost does feel like that. Yeah.
There's no reason to have a number 1, number 2 when you're just surviving.
Yeah.
So if you think
5, there's no way they're going to be. I mean, I think Carlos will drastically outperform Alex, but there will be no like number 1, number 2 internal.
That team doesn't need a number 1 or number 2.
No, 2026, if they can be like a top 3, top 4 team, kind of like an Aston of 20. Was that 24? No, 23. Yeah, if they can be an Aston of like Aston was in 23, hopefully they don't have that fall off. But if they can be consistently scoring podiums, that's when you're got a number 1, number 2, and it's going to be Carlos if he can perform the way everyone is expecting him to this year, because you set up like it's Alex's team, then Carlos comes in, he sweeps the floor with Alex. Now it's Carlos's team.
Yeah.
So
that would be the interesting thing, though. I wonder if you were to ask Carlos and Alex just kind of separately, like what the division is there, what they would say. Like I do think Carlos would probably say, it's like, we're gonna, see what happens. You're not gonna really do a 1 driver or a 2 driver. But I feel like if you ask Alex, he would probably say, oh yeah, I'm the one in this situation. But
I don't know. I think they would both be not necessarily humble, but like be like, look at how we did last year, guys. Like, like there is no number 1 driver. If the number 1 driver is coming in 13th, then what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I think there's also something we said about like coming into someone's house, and it's like for Lewis Hamilton, he's coming into Charles Leclerc's house. That is Charles Leclerc's team through and through. Like even Carlos said it. He goes in the interview he did actually with Tom Clarkson. He said, "I wasn't mad because I knew who was taking my seat. Like 7-time world champion. And one of us had to leave to make room for Lewis. I knew it wasn't going to be." He literally said, "I knew it wasn't going to be Charles."
Yeah.
Charles and Ferrari are synonymous. it's like you until now you thought of Lewis and Mercedes and Max and Red Bull and Charles and Ferrari, or Michael and Ferrari. So it's like I think it's really tough to come into someone else's house and claim that you're the number one driver right off the bat.
Yeah. You know what
That's
somebody needs to do?
26.
Somebody needs to make an edit of the scene from Borat where he's like, "Is my house entry, please?" And then the neighbor is just a picture of Carlos Sainz. "It is my neighbor." He has painted my asshole.
That's good.
Somebody
be
do
awesome.
that.
I love that. I do want to point out, because you didn't get any of the constructors, Tristan, but you did get the biggest flop because Danny Rick did not live up to the hype.
Yeah, great call on that one. I mean, you're one of the haters, and the haters were right on this one.
Yeah, you got Sauber as big
It's
as
a
flop.
tough deal too because we all love him. It was so hard to claim it, but I just had a feeling. I just
Marina
knew.
picked the safe bet.
Yeah, I just knew.
That's all right.
Oh yeah, I mean that's Sergio Perez, and then also Steven said the Kick Sauber would suck. So I mean,
Great call.
Great call.
Thank you.
Although I want to know why Jason thought that Sainz wouldn't be close to Leclerc.
Because he wasn't that close in 22. Like 22, Leclerc builds out this 40-point lead over Max Verstappen. And in 23, Sainz was closer, but the car wasn't as competitive. 24, I thought would be a great year for Ferrari, bad year for Red Bull, which it kind of was. But Sainz stepped up. He stepped up big time.
The problem, bro, though, is he had 6 DNFs in 2022.
Yeah.
If he had just finished races, then he would have been there. Like, that's the only problem.
I did not think about that. That's a great call.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
But that's obviously, neither here nor there. That did happen. So that's why, that could have repeated this year. So you never would have known. But again, yeah.
You know what else is a big mistake? All of us saying that, all of us except for Jason saying that Logan Sargent was going to top the deconstructors.
But
I said Stroll, which he got close.
We were
but not quite.
Man, like, I don't know.
He's top 5, but he's not even like it's Checo, and then I think it's Checo, then Alex, then Franco, then Lance, then Logan.
Well, none of us thought that Logan would get booted halfway through the season, too. Logan could have had more opportunities to rise those ranks.
We could have predicted that had we not ridden the U.S. hype of they just want an American driver and they're going to keep him till the end of the year at least. So, also, I said Checo was going to lose his seat mid-year. Didn't happen mid-year, but it was the correct thing. Said both Haas drivers were going into the retirement at the end of the year.
It's close. Pretty close.
But you're pretty close.
Yeah. They're both gone. I can't believe Hulkenberg's still here.
Yeah.
Like when he got replaced by Ricciardo at Renault, I thought it was his career over for sure. And somehow he came back. I mean, applause, incredible work by Hulk.
Yeah. He revived his career. He resuscitated his career from scratch.
I mean, Ocon's career was almost dead. He was a reserve driver at Mercedes in 2019. And he came back. He came back.
That's true.
It's still dead. I'm sorry. It's still dead.
No. Come on. You don't believe in the Hoster plan?
After Checo leaving, I think that Ocon is one of the worst drivers on the grid.
Oh, boo! That's false. Fake info.
He's a race winner.
Hot take. I think Esteban Ocon is a worse raw talent driver than Joe Guanyu.
Wow, that is
raw talent.
Raw talent out of
so cooked.
We haven't seen him do anything.
That's rough.
That's in his first race, didn't he?
I know. Ocon's kind of funny.
Joe scored points in his first race?
So he was P9, I think. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure.
That's another thing I gotta disagree with you about.
He was P10 in his first race.
Told you. Called it.
Interesting.
Me and you disagree on a lot of things.
Yeah, like George being a tier 1 driver, Ocon being a good or bad driver.
George is
Ferrari
not
still trying to win.
Wait, hold on. Show of hands if you think George is a tier 1 driver.
That's why I always say, anytime I
Okay.
refer to George in this podcast, I always say tier 1 driver, George Russell.
If we're talking about
Every
first
single
race,
podcast.
if we're talking about
Can I-
first
can I-
race impressions, he almost won his first race. To be fair,
I am shooketh.
Wait,
He would have
so-
won in Bahrain. He was
I'm sorry.
demolishing Bottas. No
What?
time in the car. 2020 Sakir, sorry, not Bahrain.
Delusional.
What an incredible driver.
What is your top?
Not a tier 1 driver. He's a
Jason,
Oh.
what is
Nah.
your
No.
top?
He beat
5
Lewis
F1
Hamilton in the same car multiple years.
yep.
Who are the top 5 drivers in F1
Yes.
right now?
Please.
Is that
Not
what you-
in any specific order.
No.
Max-
You got to do this in specific order.
Oh,
Come on now.
that's a
Order.
tough-
Who said that?
Stand up, my guy. You gotta stand up for yourself.
order? Go for it.
In
And I
order, okay, fine. Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc. I'm going this off of data. Lando
If you-
Norris,
Okay,
George Russell,
okay.
and then I think Lewis
Are
Hamilton.
you, wait,
Yeah.
wait, stop. Before you keep making that face, is it including the Lewis Hamilton's accolades or how he's performing right now?
in 2024, who are the top 5 drivers?
Well, it's no.
Oh,
Lewis,
it's in the
top
points.
five.
It's in the points.
The fact that you put George and Lewis and not Oscar and Lewis blows my mind.
That's a huge.
Yeah, George
blow
Russell,
right
right.
5th place.
Okay,
George is
Lewis
right on
Hamilton,
the cusp.
4th.
Top 5 drivers of 2024 for me: Max, Lando, Charles,
There we go.
Oscar,
There you go.
Carlos.
There you go.
Do you know who's in 6th in points? George Russell,
Not a
7th,
top
Lewis
5
Hamilton.
driver.
Yeah,
Not a top 5 driver. Let's make it clear. Not a top 5 driver. If you're not even in top 5 out of 20
Oh.
drivers, how can you claim tier 1 status?
He won
I think
2
he
races.
could still win a world championship.
He
So
won 2 races.
You are delusional.
more than Lewis,
George
more than
Russell
his teammate.
champion. George Russell's biggest fault is the fact that he's in the wrong generation. He will never win a championship with Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen on the grid. It ain't gonna happen.
Okay, you
Yeah.
could be ageist like that. I mean, we
Of course.
have rookie of the year Alonso over here. Like,
Actually,
George technically should have won 3 races, to be fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
give it 2 years, and Kimi Antonelli will be consistently beating George Russell.
And if he didn't get that BS call on the 3rd win, he probably would be ahead of Sainz on points. And
Yes.
he would be a top 5 driver.
Yeah,
How
Not
do you-
his fault that for some
Why?
reason the FIA sucks.
How do you say that a top 5 driver in 1 year, like top 5 in 2024, classifies him as a tier 1 driver? Tier 1 drivers are
He has
Max
the
He's
skills.
gonna be the
He has the
flagship
skills.
driver at Mercedes.
He could win a world championship.
You
That's
could-
what I classify.
Here's the
No.
thing. Here's the thing, though, too. Tier 1 drivers should not have to be relying on the FIA to be a top 5 driver.
That's using
Like-
your resources.
No.
No.
FIA.
You use your
No,
talent.
he's not. Come on, tell him, Tristan. Let him out.
You
of it.
use your talent.
Why
You
would
do
Toto
not,
Wolff trust George Russell to be his tier 1 driver at his team?
because
Toto
Toto is not
Wolff, one of
smart.
the most
Toto
respected
is not
guys in the
smart.
garage.
One shit in years, besides a couple races.
Remember when he was beating Bottas in 2020 in a Williams at Imola?
Red
That's
Bull was
like-
terrible for 50% of the year. They were carried by Max Verstappen with ball and chain Sergio Perez, and yet they were still over, I want to say it's over 100 points clear of Mercedes.
Mercedes had, on average, their worst year since, like, even worse than the past 2 years.
Womp
On
womp.
points per race, they had a worse year, Mercedes.
Womp womp.
I'm glad me and Steven agree on this, because
We're gonna see. Maybe in 2 years, if Antonelli is blowing the doors off him, sure. Yes, you're right.
tier
But
driver
if we have
champions.
world champion George Russell,
The
I'm
thing
gonna
I'll
be
say
proven
is
right.
too.
I think there's 4 tier 1 teams, and each team has at least one tier 1 driver in.
There's 4 tier
Um,
1.
Yeah, Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Those are the 4 tier 1 teams.
at least for this year. Next year, it'll be
Next year it could
like
be,
Haas,
and
Ocon
yeah,
will win the
Haas
whole
or
thing.
some
Oh
crap.
god.
Yeah, and then
Well, we-
Ocon would be a tier 1 driver.
Are we gonna
Ooh.
are we gonna have a George Russell SD Bestie 1-2 in the constructors next year? Is that what I'm hearing?
Please, that would be so funny,
Going P2.
and I'd be proven so right.
The world would literally end if that happened.
Oh, for
Oh
sure.
no, my road would just begin at that point. That's crazy.
Jason would become a dictator and yeah.
I wanna-
Dictator.
I want to wrap up this specific conversation. However, I want to make very clear. a tier 1 driver is a driver that has the raw speed and the raw talent to win a world championship. To win a world championship, who has already won several world championships, and that is at least at the very least
several is. I wouldn't say several. I'm just saying talent,
with that.
not time in the sport. You need time in the sport to win.
Okay, let's say at least one, or soon to be. Like Lando, in my opinion, is a tier 1 driver, or they have to be at least top 3 in their season. Like in this season.
Nah, I think George is still just as good as Lando.
That's crazy, bro.
Dude, I'm not even a Lando Norris fan, and that's the hottest take I've ever heard in my entire life.
The thing is, too, I'll say, George doesn't have that winning mentality, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, he does. He
complained to Max about how he was being
he goes, did you see him take his gloves off and slap Bottas on the helmet? He slapped Bottas on the helmet.
No.
That's a winner's mentality.
That was the most egregious thing he's done in like 6 years of sport.
Nah, that was Bottas being a Dumbo and crashing into him.
No.
See, like, this is right. I don't want to like poke holes in your boat, Marina, but like, what about single-time champions? Like, is Mario Andretti a tier 1 driver?
Yes.
Button.
That's what I said. Either world champions or
not Button.
Soon to be a world champion.
Jack Villeneuve. Nowhere near tier 1 driver. He just had a great car.
That's true. That is very true.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to put holes in your boat, but golly.
I think
hey,
now, off the top of my head, I could name 10 tier 1 drivers, none of which are George Russell.
Marina, you're literally on the Titanic right now. Like,
hey, Tristan. Is Dale Jr. a tier 1 driver?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He always came up short.
He came up short a lot. He also had 26 wins. I mean,
only 26.
But
over how long was his career?
NASCAR has different metrics because he's a 2-time Daytona 500 champion. He's a 2-time Xfinity Series champion,
and they have like 40 races a year.
He won Talladega 4 times in a row. I mean, like, there's different metrics, huh?
You consider him like a tier 2 driver?
I think so because
like a Jenson Button.
No, Jenson Button is a better driver than George Russell.
Dale Jr., I hate to continue with this, but Dale Jr. is a tier 2 driver because he was in a championship winning team his whole career and never won a championship. I mean, that is unfortunately, that's kind of like if Lance Stroll drove for Red Bull. He
wouldn't win, though. He would not.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's why he would not be a tier 1 driver.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. He would be if he won a couple races and was consistent. Probably tier 2, tier 3, Right now, he's, like, not good at all. I have no faith in Lance Stroll. But, like, I mean, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, kind of that, So that's a whole other can of worms, but still.
Yeah. In that sense, George got dealt a bad hand because by the time he got to Mercedes, they were already...
They sucked, which is unfortunate.
So,
what do you think about that, Maria? Do you think he could be, like... Let's say he took Checo's seat. Like, would he be more favorable in your eyes?
She's going to say no. Of course she's going to say no.
No.
But Checo...
Which is a very low standard, if you ask me.
Checo's not a good standard to put.
I would love to put Max in, if I'd love to put either Max in the Mercedes or George in the Red Bull, I think Max would wipe the floor with George Russell.
Absolutely.
That's why he cannot be a tier 1 driver. You can't put 2 drivers that are both in tier 1 if you think one driver would wipe the floor with the other.
Max is not tier 1, dude. He's S tier. He's got Max tier. What do you mean?
This is probably a hot take. Okay, this is probably a hot take, and this is the last one, and then we'll move on because we got.
Yeah, we have to move on.
Right.
I think that if Jenson Button in his prime raced against Max Verstappen, it would be very tight. I don't think you could say the same about George Russell.
No,
man, you're literally talking up Jenson Button like he was all out.
JB is the greatest.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. Just
here's the thing, too. If we were to put Valtteri Bottas in the seat in Mercedes, like Lewis's seat with George Russell, I think Valtteri would beat him.
Interesting.
Say that again?
If you put Valtteri in Lewis's seat right now against George Russell, Valtteri would beat Lewis. Would beat George.
I think Valtteri would have more race wins in 2024 alongside George Russell than Lewis did.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Because Lewis had qualifying issues, and I think that's where
George would go back to
George
Williams.
was better than Lewis this year. And the fact that Lewis had such bad qualifying problems this year, and yet in terms of how close they were in the championship, George did not run away with it compared to Lewis.
Bro, you guys are stressing Jason out so hard.
No, we just added 20 minutes of just talking in circles. And I'm just here I still gotta believe. It doesn't change anything.
Well,
let's talk about two other predictions that I want to talk about. First of all, best race of the year. What do you think, looking back, what do you think was probably the best race of the year?
That's so
hard.
Brazil.
There's so many.
Brazil was great.
Brazil was probably.
Canada was good. Miami was good because it was the start of a new era.
Yeah.
That was fun. Hungary was silly.
Monza
I don't even remember Monza that much.
I liked Austria. That was the one where Max and
Silverstone was a good race.
Silverstone
I had that
was
in my prediction.
Yeah, yours was the only one I think that
mine was so bad.
Monaco
was a dud after lap 1. Well, the repeat of lap 1.
Yeah.
Jeddah was okay, but there was no fight at the top. I think the only reason you could make an argument for Jeddah is because of Ollie Behrman. Other than that,
yeah, I agree.
That was the only thing.
I think Australia might be a good pull, only because there was that first couple laps excitement of Max DNFing, and then obviously the big thing with Carlos winning.
Well, there was that, and also just it kind of, and we all kind of embraced it when Max fell out. It's oh, this is anybody's race. You know what I mean? Because nobody could dominate it like Max could have. So that kind of got us excited.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to stay firm and say, no, I'm going to say Brazil. It was the coolest race to watch, in my opinion.
Okay.
It was the coolest. We saw possibly the greatest drive in Formula One, in that race. So.
Anybody who says that Charles Leclerc's P19 to P3 was a better drive than Max Verstappen's
it wasn't.
Is actually crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts.
You don't all due respect, you don't know wheel.
I would argue that Checo's from last to first in Sakir, which again, the Throwback Thursday was just about pretty much, was even more impressive than Charles's P19 and P3.
Oh yeah. You don't think it's more impressive than Max?
No, I don't. If you throw that rain into the mix, and again, we've said this and
said we all know who would have won that race if it wasn't for the Mercedes pit crew.
Here we go.
George Russell.
Duh, of course he would have, because he's a tier 1 driver, George Russell.
No way. I swear.
We gotta stop. We spent 20 minutes on this.
Hey, you just brought back up, my guy. You just brought up.
Well, you brought up Sakir, so I had to.
Sounds like a you problem.
Anyway, Steven, rapid fire. What do you think was your favorite?
It's hard not to say Miami, just as a McLaren fan, but Monaco was cool.
Miami was cool, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Jason?
I already kind of outed what I thought. Silverstone was a lot of fun watching Lewis fight. Brazil was just crazy. Canada was nice. Not super exciting, but it was pretty good. So, Brazil. If I had to choose one, Brazil.
I also have to choose Brazil, but for different reasons. I liked the overall race weekend in Brazil because it was so strange. Brazil race weekend, even for me, was crazy because I watched the sprint race in Beaver Stadium before the game. The
Wi-Fi, that's crazy.
Yeah,
the Wi-Fi was good this year.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is really good this year in the stadium.
And we had the quali and the race on the same day, which I thought was really interesting. We also had the show run in the Hamilton show run in the Senna car, which was really, really special for Brazilians. So
there's also the panicking with fantasy, which was fun. Oh shoot, we got to use this. The only time we could use that one chip where it really mattered, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called, but yeah. I think Brazil for sure.
Let's talk. I just want to talk about this random crazy prediction because I think I'm the only one that kind of got it right. Jason said Ricciardo on the podium. That's crazy.
I did say that, but I don't think that.
No red flags. I don't know if you meant all year because we didn't actually have that many. We had 3?
No, I think I did mean all year. Yeah, I think it was because it was our crazy prediction, right? Yeah. And we only had, I think you're right, 3. So I don't know, because remember, wasn't it 2023? There was like none or no. I can't remember why I said that. There was a reason why I thought that was.
Yeah, I think 2023 had like none or had just the one.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, we're getting close. We almost did it. There's so many races this year without a safety car or yellow flag that
Yeah.
Not a bad prediction, just it happens. So
it happens, yeah.
Yeah.
You just get unlucky.
Well,
when you have a tier 1 driver who thinks there's a tier 1 driver, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I said Ferrari doesn't mess up their strategy.
And they didn't.
Fair. I can't remember a single race this year where they like completely shit the bed.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some freakouts by drivers, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, they didn't have the best decisions, but they didn't lose a race because of strategy like they did.
There was no race where like a storyline after the race was Ferrari lost this because they screwed it up.
Yeah.
Which used to be a common theme.
Which now is a McLaren thing.
Yeah, it's actually true.
Sad as that sounds, but
does anybody remember how the season? I don't know if it's just the way it started, but when Steak was notorious for having the longest pit stops known to man. Remember that? I mean, that's going way back, but like, yeah, that was just a random.
Jeddah. I remember in Jeddah, like being at the thing, and I was like, "Why is this Steak just like randomly like in front of Max or something?" Because it was like the stuff was so long that it was like lap 15 or 20 or something, and they were already like Max was already about to lap them.
Yep.
So. Yeah, it's been a hell of a season. We had some really unfortunate predictions, some of which came true, some of which did not. Any final words on 2024 before we officially put it to rest and look to next year?
I think all of us are pretty confident in saying that this was a pleasant surprise of a year.
Yeah.
Obviously, Marina, you can still have your chin up and know your boy won it all, even though you had a little a sweaty moment there at the end.
I sweat there at the end.
That's fine. I understand it, but
I didn't like Lando, but I had a ye of little faith in Max Verstappen for
Well, I don't think you had ye of little faith in Max Verstappen. I think you had ye of little faith in that Red Bull. So I mean, and again. Like, I don't know.
And Max outdrove the car like so much towards the end of the season. Like he just adapted like out of nowhere. Still won a race late in the season. Like insanity how good he is.
No, I think my capitalization is, again, I came into this season actually really kind of like being like, this is going to suck. Like, we're going to be covering every week. Max Verstappen won this race. Blah, blah,
and it started like that too.
And it did. But then pleasant surprise, it actually turned into kind of like a fairy tale season where everybody kind of turned out a winner. So
I'm excited for 2024. Checo fan or a Logan Sargent or Danny Rick fan, you had a great year.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, that's it for our predictions or reviewing our predictions for 2024. We will be back, maybe not next Monday, but we will be back in 2025 with a brand new intro and brand new videos, brand new content. We might look at the Senna documentary and a bunch of other stuff. But in the meantime, check out our socials at Lights Out Latest, Instagram and TikTok for Tech Tuesday, Wag Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, Fun Fact Friday, and occasional Man on the Street. Bye, guys.
Bye.